Hello, good morning.
Morning, guys. I'm Katie, the Education Director here at Carolina Tiger Rescue. And we're going to talk about Saber this morning. We're going to see if we can't get him back over here. But behind the camera is Louise. We are going to do our best to answer as many questions as possible. We know that Saber is popular, but we definitely want to tell you the truth behind white tigers as well this morning. And then, of course, we have an activity on Facebook. There's Saber. Good morning, Saber. And then Saber lives with Shira, so here's Shira. Give you guys a minute to say hello to him. So again, this morning we're going to talk about Saber and white tigers, and I'll tell you a little bit about Shira because we definitely don't want her to feel left out. He's going to wander back and forth and come into and out of view, so just know that we're keeping an eye on where he is and definitely want to for you to see him, but he has the choice of whether he wants to be seen or not. All of our animals have that choice. So again, I'm Katie, the Education Director here at Carolina Tiger Rescue, and behind the camera is Louise. We're going to do our best to answer questions. We have been going back on Facebook and answering questions that we don't answer live. So stay tuned to that, check back. We're doing our best to get those answered. We know you guys have lots of questions and we appreciate that. And then also, if you have the opportunity or the means, please consider donating. This virus thing is financially difficult for everybody, but we've had to cancel tours for the next few weeks, and that brings in a lot of money for us. So if you have a chance and are able, donating would be a great way to help us out during this time. So let's focus on Saber this morning. Again, this is Saber. Saber is our white tiger. He is not albino. So albino would mean that he has 0 stripes. He wouldn't have any stripes, and his eyes would be red instead of blue. He does have nice blue eyes. Albino means lacking all pigments. So again, he wouldn't have any stripes. So if you've ever seen like an albino deer or an albino alligator, they're all white and their eyes are red. Saber, of course, has his stripes. He's got dark brown stripes there, and he's got blue eyes. And you may notice, if he comes over, you may notice as well that his eyes are cross-eyed. So the thing about white tigers is, as gorgeous as they are, is that they do not normally occur in the wild. So last week and then earlier this week, we've had questions of what kind of tigers do we have. So when we look at Shira here, our nice orange tiger, Shira is considered a mutt tiger and orange tiger. These guys are literally bred, our tigers are literally bred in people's backyards with no regards to their genetics. Now, I told you a little bit of a story that we don't know what subspecies our tigers are. The only exception to that is Saber. Saber is part Bengal. The white tiger gene only shows up in the Bengal subspecies. So we do know that he is at least part Bengal. He's likely not all Bengal, and we won't do the genetic testing to find out because it's just too expensive and it doesn't matter to us. But these guys have occurred naturally in the wild before. But in the wild, 1 in every 10,000 to 15,000 white tigers. No, I'm sorry. 1 in every 10,000 to 15,000 Bengal tigers will yield a white tiger cub. Whereas in captivity, if a facility is breeding for white tigers, 1 in every 30 will be a quote-unquote show quality white tiger. That means the other 29 are maybe not white enough, maybe don't have those stark black stripes, maybe have some deformities, and they have those deformities because all white tigers are inbred. So any white tiger you've ever seen in the wild is relative to any other white tiger that you've seen in captivity. Clearly my coffee has not kicked in this morning, I apologize. Any white tiger that you've seen in captivity is a relative to every other white tiger that you've seen in captivity. So we had another white tiger here several years ago named Jellybean. Jellybean and Saber are relative to one another because, again, to get the white tigers, you have to inbreed the animals. And the whole story, I'll give it to you real quick. The whole story is back in the 1950s, there was a white tiger cub born in the wild in India. His name was Mohan. Well, they named him Mohan. Some trackers found him they said, oh, we like this white tiger. He's different than all the other orange ones we've ever seen, so we want to take him. And they took him out of the wild from his mom. And when he was of breeding age, they decided, oh, we want more white tigers because Mohan's not going to live forever. And so what they did eventually was they realized that it's a recessive gene. So here's your science lesson for today. A recessive gene, for the offspring or the babies to have that gene, both parents must have it. So I have blue eyes because both my parents have blue eyes. And I have blonde hair because both my parents have the gene for blonde hair. Now, when they took Mohan and they bred him with an orange tiger, they got a litter of orange cubs. And they tried it again with a different orange tiger and they got a litter of orange cubs. So what they eventually realized is, oh, it's a recessive gene. Both of the parents must have that gene. And so what they did is they bred Mohan with one of Mohan's daughters, and that started the inbreeding. So because of all the continual inbreeding over the generations, these guys are often born with birth defects because no new generation or no new genes are coming in. And so what they'll do is they will be born with birth defects. So white tigers are born with crossed eyes. Sabers are extremely crossed, and it's very visible. If he was to come up here, we would see that. And then they can be born with epilepsy, which is seizures. They can be born with scoliosis of curvature of the brain. They can be born blind or deaf, and that's again because of that continual inbreeding and no new genes are coming in. So that's the long history very quickly. You can certainly learn more on our website, carolinatigerrescue.org. We've got a page on white tigers. So at Carolina Tiger Rescue, we're not a fan, although we love Saber. Please hear me when I say we love Saber. But we would prefer not to have to rescue white tigers anymore because it would mean the inbreeding has stopped. So we would love it, love it, love it if one day there were no more white tigers to rescue. But we have rescued Saber. Saber came from our largest rescue to date. We rescued 16 animals from a roadside zoo in Colorado. If you tuned in on Thursday, you would have met 3 of our other tigers, Capriccio, India, and Carolina, from that same rescue. Previous to being at that roadside zoo in Colorado, Saber was born to be a prop in a Las Vegas show. There's a good look at Saber. Thank you, sir. Hi. There's his eyes. He's got those nice crossed, well, they're not nice, but those crossed eyes, you can see them, and they are blue, which is different than the amber eyes of our orange tigers. So he was bred to be a prop at a Las Vegas show. And to deem him or make him safer, what they did is they declawed him on all 4 paws, and then they also filed his teeth down. And that's so that if he bit somebody, it wouldn't hurt as much, but by still getting bit by a tiger is extremely dangerous. So we have a picture of what Saber's mouth looks like. When he first arrived, as you can see, that's where those canines should be. And he should have 2 to 3 inch canines here. And those canines are used to take down their prey. But when he was a baby, they filed down those teeth all the way to the gum line so that if he bit somebody, it wouldn't hurt so much. And so a lot of times these animals that are used as props in Las Vegas shows, or used in cub petting, they're altered. They are declawed, or we call it defanging, to make them safer to handle. Because if you go and take a picture with a cub and you're bit by them, you're not going to tell everybody it was a great experience. They want you to have the best time possible, so you tell everybody it was great, so that more and more people will go and take pictures with those cubs. But the reality is, he had his teeth filed down, and if you see those black spots there, that's where the nerve is. And what we had to do when he came was give him root canals. So we had a wonderful organization who worked with us, Peter Emily Animal Dentistry. It's a nonprofit that goes all over the world to help give dental work to animals in need. They came in and spent the entire weekend with us and gave Saber root canals. So they went ahead and drilled in, took out any nerve, and they packed it up so that those nerves are no longer exposed if their nerves are there, and it also won't get infected. So that, unfortunately, is the life of an animal that's bred for the entertainment industry. The other thing that we'll keep an eye on for Saber is signs of arthritis because he is declawed. So if you see as he walks, his feet flop forward. We call that paddle foot. And that is significantly different than Shira. Shira's got all the formation in her feet because she has her claws. And the thing is that cats walk on their tiptoes. So when you remove their claws, you're actually removing the tips of their toes and causing them to walk differently. And so that could lead to arthritis at some point. So I realize that I've hit you guys with a lot of information. And I am curious, and I suspect you guys have a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. And so I'd be happy to answer your questions at this point.
So, how much does he weigh, and how old is he?
How much does he weigh? So Saber's, I think, around 330-ish pounds. I can't remember the weight off the top of my head. And as far as age, I'm going to stall for just a second as I find out. Hang on. Hold, please.
We'll give you a good look at Saber. Oh, he's going to go follow Katie.
Saber's going to be 10 years old this year.
Saber is going to be 10 years old this year. Thank you for that question, Everett. Do their teeth grow back?
Do their teeth grow back? Great question. Their teeth do not grow back. So Saber still has those filed down teeth. He's had them. We found video of him when he was just about 4 or 5 months old with his teeth filed down. They're still the same way they are when they were filed down. They unfortunately do not grow back. The good news is Saber is safe here and he gets all the food he needs. He doesn't have to hunt, and those are his hunting teeth. But that is something that we do not like, is when animals are wild animals are altered like that. And it's something to keep in mind with those cub petting businesses and all that. That is something they will often do, and it can be detrimental and painful for them. But he luckily is not showing any signs of pain. His mouth is completely fine now, since we were able to give him those root canals. And we'll just, as he ages, keep an eye out for arthritis. But so far he's doing fantastic. I came out here yesterday and he was on top of his den box there, so he has no problem getting up and down.
How do they declaw tigers?
How do they declaw tigers? So what they'll do is they'll sedate them, and then they'll go in and essentially cut off to the first knuckle. So on our hands, it would be like cutting off right here on each of our fingers. And the problem is, that's the part of the foot they walk on. And so imagine if we suddenly had to always walk on the tips of our toes or the balls of our feet. Our body's not meant to hold us that way, just as his body's not meant to hold him this way. And so when you have larger cats like these guys, it can eventually cause arthritis. And again, that's something we'll keep an eye out for. But 10 years old, he's doing fantastic, so it's not something that we worry about too much at this point.
Can these guys ever go back into the wild?
Good question. Can these guys ever go back to the wild? So these guys have never lived in the wild. Shira and Saber have never lived in the wild. For one reason why white tigers don't occur very often in the wild in the Bengal subspecies is the Bengal subspecies lives where it's nice and green. We can follow him over there. Where it's nice and green. And as you can see, Saber sticks out like a sore thumb. And so those white tigers, if they were to be born in the wild, remember 1 in every 10,000 to 15,000 births of Bengal tigers may yield a white tiger cub. They are likely not going to survive. It's a lot harder to hide a big white tiger than it is an orange tiger in the lush green of India and over in the southern part of Asia where Bengal tigers live.
Monroe, who is 6 years old, is asking a really good question. How does Saber use his tail, like for balance or running?
Good question. So the way you can kind of look at a tail is if you have ever walked across a balance beam or you're trying to balance yourself, you stick your arms out. And so when you stick your arms out, you're helping to make sure that you don't fall side to side. So that's what the way he uses his tail as well. Tigers are a little... because they're big, they're going to stay down on the ground quite a bit. And so what they will use it for is mainly for running as they're chasing after prey. So if they dart in one direction, they're going to swing that tail around so that they don't fall over.
Ella, who is 8, is asking if he has normal vision, even though his eyes are crossed.
Good question. Does he have normal vision? So unfortunately, we can't quite do a vision test on him. There are times that it is difficult to tell how much he sees and how well he sees. When he first came, ran into a few trees and all, but luckily they compensate pretty well and pretty quickly, and trees don't move, so he doesn't have to worry too much about that. He has also, he certainly sees well enough that he's caught vultures as they've flown away, so he sees well enough to catch those sometimes.
All right. Let's see. David, who is 6 years old, wants to know why tigers have stripes.
Why do tigers have stripes? Great question. So if you're looking at Shira there, if we were to back away, there's not as much grass in this enclosure right now just because it's the end of winter. But if there was grass, she would be able to blend in a little better. It's essentially color or pattern distortion. So the stripes kind of with other animals, their prey especially don't see color as well as we do, and so they're able to distort it. Just like the zebras, when you see a herd of zebras together and they're all together, you can't tell where one zebra ends and the other begins. This is the similar thing of they are blending in with those blades of grass. It's pretty fascinating how quickly they can disappear.
Mira, who is 9 years old, wants to know if Saber is this playful with other tigers, or does he only have a bond with Shira?
Great question, Mira. So great question, Mira. When Saber first came, he actually lived with a different tiger named Shenandoah. They had been together, and we think they had been a breeding pair. When Saber first came, we did have to neuter him because, again, we do not allow any breeding at our facility. We don't want any babies, as cute as they are. It's more mouths to feed, and we have more animals to rescue. And again, these guys are not going to help populate the wild population of tigers because there's such a mix of subspecies of tigers. So when he first came, he was with Shenandoah. Shenandoah, when she came to us, was about 14 or 15 years old, and she unfortunately passed away about a year ago. And we had noticed that Saber had been so used to living with another tiger that he needed more enrichment. And Shira had previously lived with other tigers, and those other tigers didn't quite get along with her. And so we decided, let's see if we can't move Saber over and see if we can introduce them to one another. And that was done over a period of about 6 weeks. They had a shared wall for a while. And then eventually we felt comfortable enough to let them share the same space, and they chuffed and chuffed and chuffed and are very playful with one another, which is fantastic to see. It's not something that we can do too often, and that is just because breaking up tigers if they don't get along is not possible. We can't go in there like brothers and sisters and pull them apart. And so that's something that we do on a very irregular basis, but it's something that both animals have benefited from. So we love to see that he's so playful with her. He definitely was playful with Shenandoah, but because Shenandoah was older, she didn't really put up with him very, very much.
Oh, I think we're back.
Sorry guys, if it blacked out for a second. We're out in the boonies back in the back of the sanctuary.
Somebody would like to know what degree is needed to work with tigers and other big cats.
Good question. So most of our keepers have a degree in wildlife biology or something of the like, and have done studies of animals and all. You could do a zoology degree as well. My degree is in education. I was a teacher before I came here. But the biggest thing, education is certainly important in learning as much as you can about them, but interning and doing volunteering is a great way to start with this and to see whether or not it's something that you like. Yesterday was a big cleaning day for us, and we spent the entire day scooping and picking up cat poop. So if that's not something that you like, you may decide, I want to work with big cats in a different way, which is totally fine than being a keeper. There's lots of different ways that these guys need help. But volunteering and interning is definitely the best way to do that.
What kinds of foods do we feed them, and does Saber need any sort of special food because of his teeth?
Great question. So we tune in tomorrow. We are going to go feeding with a keeper tomorrow, so we'll give you a little bit more in depth. But our guys are what we call obligate carnivores. They have to eat meat to survive. All cats are. And so we feed them meat. Primarily we feed them chicken. Occasionally we'll have hunters that bring us deer. Hello, Shira, who bring us deer. And farmers that'll bring us livestock that has passed away. But as far as Saber, he doesn't require, luckily, a special diet. He's able to eat that meat, and we'll talk more about their teeth tomorrow and what each set of teeth is for. We don't give him anything big, too big that he has to carry too far, only because he doesn't have those canine teeth to carry it too far. But he luckily can still receive big pieces of meat, and he just sits down with it and eats it. No problem. Great question.
Do tigers prefer to live alone or with company when they are in captivity?
That's also a great question. It is dependent on the tiger. So just like humans, tigers have their different personalities. I am of the personality of I like to be around people, and then eventually I like to be by myself. These guys are, some of our tigers prefer to live on their own, while others do, if they've lived with other animals or other tigers for their entire lives, then they do seem to appreciate the company of another tiger. Raja, who we've met a couple times last week and then this week, he used to live with another tiger who he was found with on the side of the road outside of Charlotte, and they lived together for about 11 years, and after 11 years they said, no thank you, I don't want to be with you anymore. So we separated them, and Raja is living the bachelor life, and he says best thing ever.
What is the lifespan of a white tiger, and is it different than other tigers?
Wow. Great question. So it's really just dependent on, great question as far as the lifespan of white tigers. It's dependent on each individual animal, of course, as it is with other tigers. They can, of course, be born with any kind of birth defect that comes from the inbreeding. Our other white tiger lived to be about 17 and a half and died of, I think, of heart failure or something similar to that, and because of old age. And we don't have any reason to think that Saber won't live a nice long life as well. But it's all going to be dependent on the birth defects that they may be born with and all. Saber, when we do his physicals, has been healthy, has good blood work. His main issues that we are keeping an eye on are those teeth, which we have taken care of, and then also those declaws. That doesn't mean there's not some underlying issue somewhere, but we haven't been able to find anything, so he is otherwise and luckily healthy.
All right, I think we have time for one more question.
All right.
Samantha, who is 10 years old, is asking if white tigers are endangered.
Are white tigers endangered? So white tigers are part of they're only found in the Bengal subspecies. So this is a long answer to your question. So they are rare, but I wouldn't say they're endangered because they're not going to, again, occur very naturally in the wild. 1 in every 10,000 to 15,000 births of the Bengal subspecies may yield a white tiger cub. And that cub, again, in the wild is not likely to survive because it's a mutation. And just like other mutations of animals, there's a reason why it was born that way through that mutation, and then there's a reason why it doesn't survive. And he would have a hard time surviving in the wild in lush green because he is white. So the other thing is, to add to that, is there's only about 1,200 Bengal tigers left in the wild. So the odds of one being born in the wild are essentially non-existent at this point. So it's kind of like, even though he's not albino, it's kind of like when an albino alligator is born. He's not endangered, he just happens to be a different color. He's still part of that original subspecies. It's just that mutation of his coloring. So that's similar to Saber as well. So if you have other questions, feel free to hit us up on Facebook. We're going to have to head out here. We've done all our cleaning today, but it's going to be, we've got other things that we have to get done. There is also an activity on our, that will link on our Facebook page, but go to our main page as well, CarolinaTigerRescue.org, where you get to create your own tiger. You send that in to us, and you'll tell us all about your tiger, how old they are, what their name is, and what their story is. If you send us a picture of that, or scan that to us and send it to education@CarolinaTigerRescue.org by Monday, you'll be entered to win a prize from Carolina Tiger Rescue. So thank you so much for joining us and for meeting Saber, and hopefully you guys at some point will be over all this mess and you guys will be able to come out and visit and see our animals in person, and we appreciate you tuning in. Tomorrow we've got another fun morning for you. We're going to go feeding with one of our keepers. And you'll get to learn about their teeth more, but also how we feed them. So tune in tomorrow at 9:30, and everybody have a fantastic day. Bye.